Hi, everyone, and welcome to Happy Not Satisfied. My name is Dan Morrison, and I am the founder of Happy Not Satisfied and the host of this podcast. So today we have an incredibly special guest that does really unique work and special work. He is the founder and artistic director of the award-winning choral group Tonality. And this is not your average, run-of-the-mill choir. They have a really special mission statement to deliver authentic stories through voice and body to incite change, understanding, and dialogue. You can hear them on the soundtrack of the new Space Jam. They've performed with Bjork. They've done all kinds of amazing things. My guest is somebody that's in high demand, touring the country as a conductor and a composer. He's also a beast in the gym, which is how I met him, and I will talk about that in a little bit. But he's just a genuinely good person and someone I'm super excited to talk to. So welcome to the podcast, Alexander Lloyd Blake.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm telling you, I was really excited to have this conversation, and we have so many interesting overlaps, I think, in our pasts, even though we haven't known each other all that long. I feel like I've known you for a long time. But as I said at the beginning, you have a really unique job, and you do some really, really interesting work. And I know that the world of choir is probably not familiar for everybody, and certainly I think the path you've taken it in this revolutionary and new direction is really interesting. And so if you could just talk a little bit more about this group Tonality and what you do and what a day looks like for you, just to give everyone some context, I think that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, what I do seems to evolve day by day. But Tonality is a professional group that's here in Los Angeles, and it's a group of diverse singers, and our focus is on social justice issues. So we put on concerts around issues like gun violence, mental health, homelessness, LGBTQ issues. We bring in organizations to talk about how people can get involved. The singers and leaders of the community talk about stories around these issues, and then the songs directly are related to the stories that we tell. And so it's really using music as a catalyst for change. So that's Tonality's main focus, but as you mentioned, since we've been doing this work, we've received some really awesome opportunities, such as singing on Space Jam and a couple other films and documentaries, and singing with Bjork, and getting to do some video game concerts which are coming up. So that's been exciting. And then in terms of my own work, certainly conducting Tonality, I also work at the School of the Arts, LACHSA, and I also work with the National Children's Chorus as a conductor. I also sing as well on film and TV sessions and have done some arranging musically for that, as well as my own compositions and arrangements. And then recently have been asked to do some clinics around the country, either just working with different choirs or talking about music and social justice.
It doesn't sound like you have enough to do. I think you need to take on a few more projects just to round it out. That's incredible. I'm curious, and maybe this isn't a super concise answer, but what inspired you to start Tonality? It's such an interesting take on choir and combining so many different aspects.
Yeah, I come from a gospel background, so I think really the idea around music having a deep emotional bond and creating an emotional response is something I knew since really my first musical experiences. But I grew up and continued in my musical education as a classical musician. And a lot of times, if you can imagine, if you think about classical environments, certainly professional choirs, what they look like, they usually don't have a lot of people with locks. And so I figured, as I was going through my program and having some different experiences, some of them more frustrating than others, what it would be like to create an environment and a professional ensemble where I didn't have to feel like the other or the only one in the room. And the music that I grew up with, and music that also reflected many diverse styles, was treated in the same way that we would treat Bach and Mozart. So that was the beginning. And then we formed in 2016, if you can remember the political happenings around that time.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't so much of a stretch then to think we could be more than just diverse, but we can really use the vast experiences to talk about issues that matter and to speak for voices that have been silenced.
I mean, that's incredible. And I love how you talked about like the emotional connection that you have with music because I mean, I'm a classically trained musician as well. And I think it's easy to lose sight of that actually when you are really in the thick of trying to master your instrument or if, you know, that your voice is your instrument. You kind of can fall away from what made you fall in love with music in the first place. And it sounds like this project has helped bring you closer to probably why you loved music when you were a kid. And that's something I've rediscovered as an adult too. But, you know, I think this brings us just to the story of when you and I first met was actually at the gym. And it was such a funny coincidence. Like, I can't even believe it thinking back. I have always been known as sort of a music person my whole life. I played the trumpet growing up. I thought I was going to be a professional trumpet player. I became a high school band director. My dad was a high school band director. My mom teaches music. Like, everything was music. But I came to Los Angeles to go to USC for business school to just sort of do some different things. And I was wearing a USC Marshall t-shirt, which is the business school, at the gym. And so Alex came up to me because he had also gone to USC and just like came to say hi. I was like, well, I don't know. You know, I didn't do business, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, what'd you do? He says, music and choir. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. So just completely randomly, like the one time in my life I've ever been approached as like the business guy was when somebody who actually had a very similar background to me approached me. So anyway, we connected. We ended up getting coffee with my wife, Ellie, and we've stayed connected ever since. And I've been following him as he's very quickly had a rising star, I would say, and I think a perfect person to talk to in the context of sort of the thread of this podcast, which is the idea of creating your own luck. Because as I told him, I think if somebody maybe came across him at this moment, it might be like, whoa, this guy just caught a lucky break. But I think you're going to soon find out there is a lot more to it than that. So I would love, Alex, to hear a story or a time or just the background of how you kind of feel like you have created your own luck in this endeavor.
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of talks recently about what seems to be random ideas or opportunities that come. And I have found in my own personal way, it seems every time I have created something or I have tried to create an initiative to help the community, things have come about. So I can talk about how I got involved with the film things, and this is going to be maybe a long but crazy story.
Let's do it.
So a couple of years ago, I think it was 2018, March for Our Lives was having an event here in Los Angeles. And so there is a pianist, Laura Downs, I'm going to mention a whole bunch of names. Mm-hmm. She reached out because she knew of our work with Tonality, and she wanted to create an event and have young people perform at March for Our Lives. And so she asked me, would you, I know that there's a school of performing arts here, LACHSA. Would you happen to know the choir director? I said, funny enough, I do. And you're speaking to him.
Yeah.
And she was like, that makes no sense. So anyways, Tonality and LACHSA were able to kind of do a joint performance. That same day as that performance, we had a women's rights concert. And so I asked her if she wanted to play in that event. And she said, of course, I'll be here, that'd be great. And she asked if she could bring some friends. I said, of course, you're playing in our concert. So she brings a couple of people. One of those friends was Michael Abels, who is a film composer, has done Get Out, Nope, and Us by Jordan Peele. And so he starts coming to our concerts, and he needed a choir for the film ASCAP Awards. So I was able to meet with him for coffee, and we were able to sing with him for the film ASCAP Awards. He starts coming to Tonality concerts, and he asked to bring a friend. And so he brings Edie Boddicker, who is a wonderful vocal contractor for film and TV here in town. And after the concert, she's excited, and she talks to me about, she asked me if I sang, and I told her no, this might actually be out of, luckily she didn't listen to me. But I didn't know who she was at the time, and then turns out that she hires singers for film. I didn't even know what SAG was. Screen Actors Guild was obviously not involved in my classical studies, but a couple months later, I was singing on the film score for Us that Michael Abels composed. And yeah, it's just really interesting kind of as I took on these jobs that were coming with the high school and Tonality is kind of creating its own environment of this new thing that I feel like was really trying to answer questions that not only I had, but questions that our community were trying to answer. Um, the groundwork was being laid for all of these opportunities to come together. And all of these communities that seemed so distant, it was just one or two touch points of communication that kind of brought things really to where they are. And so I feel like for me, the kind of creating the luck in a sense was just saying yes to opportunities, finding ways to serve. It was really the social justice stuff that got me involved in the film things. And so I think that's really kind of been my thought. Just say yes to opportunities, be friendly, find ways to give back, and it seems like just doors continue to open.
That's amazing, and I couldn't agree more. And I love this. I love your mindset on that. I mean, is there? I'm sure that there's been years of work and grinding that have gone into even just getting to the point where you could start a group like Tonality. And so, can you talk maybe a little bit more about what that looked like and what you did leading up to that point?
Sure. And of course, none of this was done intentionally.
Right.
But I feel like bullied my friends in forming vocal groups. I mean, since middle school. I was always the guy who liked singing harmonies. And so, I would get friends around and I would teach them parts. And I think in high school, in college, in a summer program, in my master's and doctorates, in every single program I was in, I started some type of group. And so, or led some type of group. And really in all those experiences, I was just doing to feed my own passions. I was learning about management of people, about booking locations, about the thousands of emails that go into putting on an event. All the non-musical things that I feel take up a lot of the time, I was having to do just for these volunteer groups. And so all the skills I learned about, what it really takes to form a group and to keep an ensemble going. And of course, that's not even considering the nonprofit aspect of things. But the spirit and the entrepreneurial kind of fire that you need to persistently go after these goals, I was starting even from my middle school days and didn't realize that those skills would lead to helping to start and to sustain an organization.
Yeah, and I mean, I would. It's not like you're like, oh, I want to start a group so we can sing in movies. It was like, I enjoy singing with other people, and I'm gonna do whatever work it takes to keep that going. And then it just seems like you just kept doing that on a bigger and bigger scale until you've gotten it to the point where it is now, and inevitably, I'm sure, where it'll continue to grow too. And I think that for anyone that's is listening, is like, I think that's such a big takeaway is, you don't have to have some grand goal that you think you have to get to. You have to do this stuff every day and sort of just lean into the process, and eventually things will take you to places that you probably never even imagined if you stay with it and you keep working hard and you keep the faith and you're good to people. So I think that's a great story and it's inspiring. So thanks for sharing that. And, on a sort of related note, but sort of unrelated, again, when I met you, obviously a very fit person and like really into working out, and I know you're at the gym all the time, but I think you've had sort of a transformation on that front too, as I have several years ago. And I would be really curious to hear kind of like what inspired you, how you stay motivated, like where did that come from, and did that help you in your career?
Yes, so, right, it's funny, even as I meet people now, they make jokes about, oh, he's a fit one. And 10 years ago, I could not have imagined that. I was 250 pounds and I was overweight. A big guy. I did not go to the gym. Didn't really seem like a place for me. And then I moved out to Los Angeles. And even that just was by happenstance. I was a cheerleader undergrad. But I was still big and a nerd. And I moved out here to UCLA. And when I met the cheerleaders here, they were a lot more disciplined about working out. And so to hang out with them, because when I came, they were the only people I knew. I just started going to the gym with them. And my eating was horrible at that time. And so the assistant coach just gave me a couple of tips. It wasn't even anything like you need to like just eat kale Monday through Thursday. It was like, eat your double cheeseburger, take one of the buns off. You know, get a Caesar salad and put the dressing on the side. These small things. I lost 10 pounds in a week. And I thought, well, one, it shows how bad I was eating. But two, more positively, if I make these small changes and can see that big of a difference, like what would happen if I actually try it? And so that first year I lost 50 pounds. And, you know, I was the kid that like would never wear a t-shirt. Like I was always wearing double shirts and always doing certain things with my body and had a lot of self-esteem issues. And I think now, certainly inspired, and I found a habit of going to the gym. But I think there's also honestly just some fear of if I stop, you know, I don't want to go back to what I looked like. But in the morning, it's nice. I wake up, you know, I have all the things in my head of all the things I need to get done. And it's nice to kind of work out some of that energy. Also to kind of, the gym is my time to also kind of organize in my mind what's a priority. And I'm not strong enough yet to like lift heavy weights and worry about the things at the same time. So I can let some of that go for a second and then come back to it, you know, a little later.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Do you think that there's parallels between sort of the trajectory that you were on with your career and being sort of disciplined with the way you approached fitness and just overall health?
Absolutely. I think one, not that they're terribly linear, but I saw myself in, you know, a certain way. And I think I placed a lot of limits, not just physically, but just in so many areas of what I could do, what I could be, because I couldn't see it differently. And making that big change, I think, opened up my mind of, you know, not every day is a day I want to be at the gym. Sometimes I hurt myself. Sometimes I need to take a rest, but generally it's the kind of the discipline over motivation. Mm-hmm. You just have to keep going. And I certainly have found, you know, with admin tasks, which is also not, you know, I didn't get into music to answer emails, but the small things I know I need to do, you continue to do them and you do them daily. And that is what creates excellence, is what creates a reputation. And I think it makes the harder times easier, just to know that, you know, there's a pattern that I have set, and that pattern is at a higher bar. Certainly in the gym, I would say now that I feel a little bit more comfortable there. And I think in my professional life, you never know what comes, but the things that I can keep consistent, if I continue to try my best, usually it works out in the end.
That discipline over motivation idea, I think, is so important. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of parallels to be drawn between like fitness and music, in terms of just getting a little bit better every day at what you're doing and finding a way to refine that and make it a little more excellent every day. I think when you're doing that in the gym, it almost opens up a new way of thinking about how can I do that in music, or really in any career, probably, is just finding that level of improvement. And then, I mean, that's amazing. Like, obviously you've gone far above and beyond, probably where you started when you were working out, and you've stuck with it. And, you know, for me, I part of the reason I don't ever want to stop is because it makes me feel so much better mentally and so much clearer and so much more alert and awake and all these things that have nothing to do with how I look. You know, it's so much with how I feel and how I can think. And that's the biggest motivating factor for me, and keeping that discipline is, it's like I don't want to go back to not feeling like this. And it seems like you're definitely kind of on that same page too. So one quick thing I do want to talk about before we hop off here. One of the things that I think about a lot and talk about is this idea of falling into the trap of I'll be happy once and it's something that I struggle with still a lot, and definitely used to struggle with even more, especially before I kind of found routines and fitness and all that. It was stress inducing. But what I mean by that is, like, I'll be happy once I achieve this goal, or once my choir does this thing, or once I get this gig, whatever it is. I'm curious if you ever feel that way, if you catch yourself feeling that way, and how you kind of think about that, or try to overcome any of those feelings.
Yeah, certainly there are goals that we have. There are goals that I have, and I would love to see, myself or Tonality kind of reach different levels of success. I used to be, and I feel like the most frustrating times I find is when I try to control the situation, which is very easy for me to do, just in my personality. However, every year I feel like, certainly not that no one lives by social media, but you have those like top 9 things. It's a nice kind of reminder to look back at the year and kind of see what happened. Every year, if someone had given me a list of 100 things I wish I had accomplished, there are always like 5 or 6 things that are bigger than the list I made that happen. And so it kind of is a constant reminder as things kind of come randomly and increasingly so, that I've kind of come to terms with my imagination is actually not as big as a lot of the possibilities that have already come. And so I'm slowly starting to release this, what does success look like? Because I think every year, if success looks like what I thought, I would have actually missed a lot of things. So it's helping me, which again is a struggle, but daily I have to kind of remind myself, stay present, do good work, be good to people, and the doors that you don't even know, the people you're not even recognizing that are watching you, is making a difference.
What else can you say? That's like so succinct and so amazing, like the perfect soundbite. Thank you. I love, and I'm stealing that. I mean, the thing is, like, if I made a list of 100 things I wanted to do, there's always 5 or 6 that are even beyond what your list would have been, and it's so true. And it's so hard to think of things in those terms. I think about like kind of the moving goalpost of success. This is what I always struggle with, is like, if at the beginning of some journey you were told, well, you're going to get this outcome, you'd be like, that's amazing. But then something happens where you might do a little bit better, or something happened even more. And then suddenly you want more. And then you're disappointed by the thing that you would have been thrilled with in the beginning. Right. It's like this really, really weird thing. And so it's having a mindset like you have and trying to remind yourself of those things is hard, but so necessary. And so I think sort of the root of happiness, because I think happiness in a lot of ways is tied into expectation, and the expectations that you create in your own mind around things. So, that's a really, really interesting way of thinking about that. And this has been a great conversation, and you have such an amazing energy about you, and like, I totally understand why people want to work with you and why you're having so much success, and just the way that you talk about things and think about things. It's inspiring, and it's been an honor to chat with you, and I'm so thrilled that you took some time to do this. I mean, you listed the 9 million things that you're currently involved with. So finding a few minutes for this really means a lot to me, and I'm sure everyone that listens will agree and be very happy that you gave your time. So thank you for that. And along those lines, where can we find you? Where can we find Tonality? Where are all the things?
Sure. Yes, and likewise. Thank you for the time. Yeah, Tonality has a website, Our Tonality, OURtonality.org. It's Our Tonality on social media. I'm Alexander L. Blake, because there are too many Alex Blakes out there on social media as well. We have a concert coming up in December if you are in Los Angeles, that's on healthcare. And you'll see a couple more things that are starting to come up. We're starting to travel around the country, so that's going to be exciting to be able to bring some of our messaging outside of the California area. But yeah, we're on social media.
Amazing. And I'm very confident in saying that this is just the beginning, and we are going to be seeing a lot more of you and Tonality and whatever projects you're involved with in the future. So make sure you check them out. Check out Alex. If you're interested in Happy Not Satisfied, you can visit our website, happynotsatisfied.com. We're on Instagram, happy.notsatisfied. And again, Alex, thank you so much. I'm sure I will see you soon at the gym when you're not traveling the world. And I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.